Well, good afternoon, my friends, and welcome back. Cumberland Outdoorsman out here at my shooting bench, and what you just saw a moment ago was a 5-shot group that I shot with this little Seneca Green Nylon 66. This one here is one that I acquired this past winter, and it came to me broken in half. And I was able to repair this gun, and unknowingly I accomplished something that I didn't know was going to be useful at the time, but I'll tell you what, it's the subject of this video. This little gun here is topped with a Redfield 4-power scope and held in place with these Burris rimfire mounts. And as you could tell, and from watching previous videos that I've posted, this is a great shooting little rifle. There's the group that I shot. You can see one of the rounds there was a little bit outside of the group. That was the first shot on a cold barrel, but all subsequent shots printed one ragged little hole. And I believe I can take a penny and cover all of them. There you can see. So penny-sized groups at 40 yards is a common thing for this little rifle. And it's because I was able to develop a way to accurize these guns and to stabilize the barrel with the receiver cover. Now, in the previous video that I posted, I had this Apache Black Nylon 66, and I ran into some problems with this gun. You know, it was really starting to frustrate me, so I employed the same technique that I used in my Seneca Green rifle, and I turned this little gun into a tack driver, you know. And the problem is actually with the construction of these guns. It's the way they're put together, but here are two 5-shot groups that I shot at the same distance with that Apache Black. There you can see all of them, very tight little groups, easily covered with a penny. So if you own a Nylon 66, a Nylon 77, or a Nylon 10C, and you want to accurize your gun, then this is the video for you. Now, I recently accurized this Mohawk Brown model. This is another Nylon 66 in my collection, and it'll shoot just as well as the other two because I employed the same technique with this gun as I did with those, and it just actually proves the point to me, and drives the point home that these guns can be made to shoot very well. Now, here's a rifle that I recently acquired. This is a very handsome first-year production Nylon 66 in Mohawk Brown. This is a November of 1959 model. And as you can see, it's in great condition. I mean, really a nice little gun. Been well taken care of. But it has the same structural flaws that all these nylon rifles had since they were new. Now, I'm going to show you the flaw that I'm referring to in a demonstration here. And first of all, I'm going to talk about the way this gun was put together. Okay, it's a one-piece polymer, nylon polymer made of Zytel 101 from the butt end all the way to the forend tip. And it's fused together in two halves there. There you can see that seam that runs all along the length of the stock. You can see that seam going all the way down there, top and bottom. And the barrel is actually held in place by a stirrup that's mounted right here. That's a screw right there that holds it in place. and it's simply clamped down in one place along the entire length, and the barrel is not actually mounted to the receiver the way most conventional firearms are. In most guns, the barrel is either screwed into place with threads or pressed in and pinned, and it's solidly fixed to the receiver. And that's the trouble with these guns here. There is no real receiver here. This is simply a cover, a steel clamshell cover that goes over the top of the stock. It's functional, but it's not a rigid one-piece construction that makes for the stability that you need for good, reliable accuracy. But I've got a way of fixing these old guns up where you can't tell it from the outside, but it will actually stabilize the barrel with the stock and the clamshell here, the receiver cover, with the stock at the same time. So first of all, let me demonstrate something to you before I take this gun apart. As you'll be able to hear, I'm going to grab the stock right here and I'll move this barrel back and forth inside the channel, and you'll be able to hear it. See, it's not stable here or here. That barrel's moving up and down and side to side all the time. And if you've got a scope mounted back here, you know, you may have the gun sighted in before you move it, and then you'll bump up against something, or the gun gets leaned against a tree or whatever, and your point of impact is off again. It shifts all the time. So what we have to do is stabilize the barrel with the stock and the receiver cover with the stock, so that when you mount a scope on here, everything stays aligned. Now let me go ahead and take this little rifle apart right here. It's very easy. If you own one of these, just follow along. You'll see what I'm talking about. All you need really is a screwdriver. First of all, make sure the gun is not loaded, and it's not. The gun's on safe. The handle, or the charging handle, just pulls straight out. Then you can unscrew these two screws here. I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes right now, and then I'll take you through the step-by-step process to get this gun stabilized. Make sure you keep up with these screws. Now just pull the cover up. And on this side, you'll see this piece of metal here. That's your ejector. Just turn it over and it'll fall into your hand just like that, unless it's stuck from dirt or grease or whatever. But it comes right out. Now, I'm going to go ahead and move this bolt back, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. As you can see in a close-up view here, the barrel simply rests inside the stock. It's not attached to anything here. It's not bolted. It's not pressed in. It's simply clamped into place by this stirrup right here. We're going to take the stirrup out, and I'll show you. You can simply remove the entire barrel assembly. It just slides out like that. See? There's your barrel. The only thing that holds it in place is this stirrup right here. Other than that, it's just pretty much floating inside the stock. And there's not much here to hold it. You know, you've got two places right here for the barrel to rest on, and then one up here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you step by step how to prepare this gun and the barrel and everything so that we can stabilize it and make it into a real shooter. Well folks, we're out here at my shooting bench today because I got a little bit better light. We're going to go ahead and get started on this project for accurizing this nylon 66. And what we're going to be using is some of this PC Super Epoxy. This is the same stuff I used when I repaired my Seneca Green nylon 66, and it worked perfectly. I've used it on other rifles. I've glass bedded bolt action rifles and done repairs on wood stocks with it, and it holds up very well. Once it sets up, it's there to stay. And what we're literally going to be doing is we're going to be bedding the barrel and the receiver cover to the stock. We're not going to be adhering it to the stock, we're going to be bedding it to the stock. So we're going to have to make sure we use a release agent on the metal parts so that the gun's not permanently glued together. Okay? First thing we need to do, we're going to be checking to make sure the gun is not loaded. Okay? And I'll go ahead and take the receiver cover off. Remove your handle or your charging handle. And we'll go ahead and take these screws out once again. Make sure the gun is on safe. And I'll show you why here in just a moment. Okay, we'll go ahead and take the receiver cover off. Remove the ejector. And this piece right here is the striker. It's in the cock position right now. You want to leave it on safe so that you don't accidentally pull the trigger and all this goes flying forward. Okay, so make sure that you leave the safety on. Or you could remove everything here if you so choose. Now we'll go ahead and remove the barrel. Let me pan down here so you can see what I'm doing. All we're doing really is stabilizing this entire system. Okay. Push down on the screw. Once you get it loose, that will dislodge the stirrup right here. And you can slide your barrel out. You can go ahead and put your screw back in for now, for the time being. Just go ahead and get it started. And the first part we're going to be bedding is the forend tip right in here. We're going to be filling this black forend part right here completely full. And that way the barrel will be cradled right here. Okay? There's already a cradle there, but it's not fitting to the barrel very well. It's not fitted to the barrel very well, I should say. Okay. Now, I use beeswax. I've got some here. There's different types of release agents you can use. You can use car wax if you'd like. I just like to use beeswax. And I'm going to go ahead and coat the barrel with a very thin coat of this stuff. Just get it applied lengthwise to the barrel. make sure you got a nice waxy coating, very, very thin all over the barrel. You don't want anything real thick on there because then you're defeating the purpose of the bedding job. Okay, I'm pretty well satisfied with that, and I just used a small amount, but it's thoroughly coated along the length of that barrel. Set it aside. Now the main thing you want to make sure of is that all this is really clean. You don't want any oil or any grease or anything like that inside the channel of this stock. Now I'm going to go ahead and use this epoxy here unscrew the cap and just go ahead and squeeze it out. I want a pretty good amount to fill that up. That should do it right there. And just start mixing it together. Now you can leave it this color if you'd like, but I like to match my epoxy to the color of the stock. Make sure you got it very well mixed. I'm going to do a nice and neat job, okay? Here I've got some black lacquer, and it doesn't take a lot of this stuff, just a little dribble there, and we're going to go ahead and mix it together. Since the forend tip is black, we'll go ahead and mix this up to match the black color. I like to use a piece of cardboard like this to mix it up on. Okay? Now once we got it mixed, you want to make sure your hands are clean before you pick up your gun stock. So you don't want any of that stuff getting all over the stock. Now I've already cleaned the inside of this right here, but we're going to go ahead and apply this epoxy, and what it'll actually do is strengthen that part of the stock, because I've seen a lot of these nylons break right here in the forend tip. This also helps prevent that. This is kind of a three-part bedding process. Make sure it's completely full here. Just like that. You can get right up to the edge, but then be sure that you don't go over. All right, now once you got it filled, make sure you wipe off any excess that might be out here. Once you got it filled, it's time to go ahead and put the barrel in. You don't have to put it all the way in, just enough to fill that gap right there. And it's okay if it oozes out the sides. Don't worry about it. Just make sure it's seated all the way down. And we're going to leave it like this for several hours. Now this says that it has a cure rate time of about 15 minutes, and that's where it just starts to harden up. Okay? You can see how that squeezed out through the sides there. But that's okay. We're going to trim all that off once it gets semi-hard. And this stuff really does get very, very hard. So we'll go ahead and put this rifle away, and then I'll be back with you when we get ready to do the rest of the stock. Okay guys, now that we got the first part of the bedding job done, we're going to go ahead and remove this barrel. I'll have to confess, I took it out the other day and cleaned it up a little bit, but we'll see how well that this barrel seated to the forend. Oh yeah. I'm going to go ahead and remove the bolt for this part of the project. We'll get the bolt and the striker out of the way for now. But there you can see in the forend, perfect support for that barrel. Now what we're going to do is completely fill in this cavity back here. Let me get up and show you that. This cavity right here is where a lot of that flex comes from. Okay? We want to fill that in solid. That way we'll have a solid support from here all the way back. And a perfect fit from the barrel where it fits here in the forend and into the stock here. So it'll be completely stabilized and be like a single unit with the stock. We're also going to bed the corners of our receiver cover. So we need to go ahead and prep all the metal surfaces once again. And I'm going to use some beeswax, a real light coating of it right here. We don't want to permanently glue any of the metal parts to our stock. That's why we use something that will help release that bond, okay? Because if you don't, let me tell you something, this stuff right here, you'll have to chisel it apart. You want a super thin coating of wax on here. You just put it on there and wipe it off. Be careful of these sharp edges. But you want enough wax on there so that when it comes time to get this thing off here, it'll actually pop off of it. And we're just going to be doing the corners here. I'm going to go ahead and put some on the outside in case any leaches over. We don't want it sticking to our metal at all. Okay, now that's prepped. I've got an empty 22 cartridge here. I'm going to go ahead and coat it and then put it in the chamber. Okay. Now I'm going to lightly coat everything here. Just a nice light coating of it. And you want to fill in your ejector claw gap right there. Get that filled in, because if you don't, that stuff will stick to it and you won't be able to get the barrel out. That stuff is really potent, let me tell you. And once it hardens, I mean, it's hard. But this stuff here will make it release. Okay? All right. I feel a waxy, dull finish on there. That's what you want to see. Nothing shiny, just a nice, dull, waxy look to it. That will assure that everything is coated the way it should be. Now I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit on my stirrup here, because some of it could overflow and stick to that stirrup, and you'll have a tough time getting this out if you don't coat it. Before I do that though, I want to make sure this is all clean. I see powder fouling and a little bit of grease and everything down there. That's got to be absolutely clean so that this epoxy will really adhere to this material. So let me get that cleaned out. Okay guys, I got these cotton tipped cleaners here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. See that? Need to get all that cleaned out. No debris allowed here. Okay. That gap right there is what we're going to fill up. Now, we're going to go ahead and mix up some of this epoxy. Use the remainder of that tube. It's going to take quite a bit here to get that whole gap filled up, so don't be too shy. And we're going to stain it. I've got some of this stain here. This is just wood stain. This is gun stock. And it just so happens to be just about the same color as this Nylon 66. Not going to matter that much, but I want to get it fairly close, you know. You're not going to be able to see it anyway. But we'll go ahead and get it mixed up here. The reason I like this stuff is because it doesn't pour and drip all over the place. It's kind of a smooth, buttery texture. So you can apply it without it running all over the place, you know. It's not going to run all over your gun stock and get all over your tools and your workbench and all over your hands. It just has a nice, buttery, smooth texture. Much easier to work with than a lot of the other epoxies that want to run all over the place. All right. Get this stuff mixed up here. See how close that color is? I mean, that's a real close match. So we'll apply a little bit. And I'm just going to mix it right in with the epoxy. And don't worry about it, it's going to harden, believe me. I've done this before and this stuff got so hard. It almost becomes like a permanent part of the gun. In fact, if you wanted to remove this stuff, you'd have to grind it out, you know, get it out of the stock. I wouldn't do this if it didn't improve the accuracy of my gun, trust me, because I don't like to change anything about any guns, especially vintage guns. But if this makes a definite improvement in how well it shoots, then it's worth it to me, because you know, if the gun's not shooting, not hitting where I'm aiming, it's of no use to me. I don't have them just to sit in a corner and look at, you know. I want to be able to take them out in the woods and use them. You might have to mix up more. Don't worry about it, because you got plenty of time. It takes a long time for this stuff to set up. All right. I'm going to go ahead and start applying it. If you get a little bit on the finish, don't worry about it on the outside, because it will wipe off. Because like I said, it takes a long time to set up and harden. Now make sure you don't have any air bubbles in there. Put your applicator in there and go all the way to the bottom and to the sides and everything. Make sure you work that epoxy in there really good. We don't want any air bubbles. There you can see there's a few popping out of there. Wipe off any excess if you see it. Make sure you get that stuff off your finish. Okay guys, I got this gap here filled completely up all the way to where the barrel seats up against the bolt. Make sure you don't get any inside of this gap here where the stirrup goes in, okay? Try not to get any at all in there. Go ahead and install your stirrup. And also, try not to get any on the outside edge here. If you do, wipe it off. Now we'll go ahead and put the barrel in. Try to tilt it up as much as you can. When you put it in there, make sure your flat side is up, okay? You're inevitably going to push a lot of that stuff to the rear. Line up the slot for your stirrup. Now just leave it. Leave it like it is. We'll go ahead and put our bolt in. And we don't want to tighten it all the way. Okay, just tighten it close to where you want it tight, but don't go all the way with it. Now we're going to let that set up. Next, we're going to go ahead and apply some to the corners and put our receiver cover back on. Okay, I use the end of this little wooden dowel here, and you don't want to put a lot on there, just a little bit, you know, just a dab, like that. And we'll come right here to the corner. Try to do this neatly, folks. You know, don't slop it on there, just fill that corner. Just like that. Same on the other side. Just fill that corner right there. This stuff is a little bit stringy, kind of like string cheese. Don't get any inside these holes right here. Just get it in the corner. Any excess, just wipe it off. It'll come right off. And you got plenty of time to work. Like I said, this stuff takes a pretty good while to really set up. All right. Nice clean job. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and put my receiver cover on. Just slide it right on there. Now, you see how that is sticking out of the edge? That's what you want. Okay? We'll go ahead and put our bolts in. That way we know that our bolts are aligned. Don't tighten them down too tight. Just get them kind of snug. Now we're going to let it set up. Before I put it away, I want to make sure that I get any excess off of the stock right now, because if you wait, it's going to be tough to remove, folks. But just stay away from these corners. Just go on and look at your panels. Make sure that all the panels are clean. Okay? You might have gotten some on your fingers and it stuck to the finish. You want that off of there. There's a little bit right there. Okay, here's a tip for you. Before you put the gun stock away, make sure you clean your hands real good, because you're going to have some on your fingertips. Get that stuff off of your fingers now. Because if you handle the stock, you're going to get fingerprints from that epoxy all over your stock, and you don't want that. Okay, now that we got the epoxy applied and the barrel seated and the receiver cover seated, it's time to put this little gun away and let the epoxy cure. So I'll be back with you when we get ready to take it apart. Well guys, here we are the next afternoon. I'm getting ready to take this little nylon 66 apart from where I put the barrel in yesterday and bedded it, and also bedding the receiver cover here. And let me just give you a close-up. We bedded it on all four corners, right there, there, and on this corner, all four corners. What we're trying to achieve by doing this is that all the metal parts fit on the stock perfectly, okay? That nothing shifts. Now let me just say, if you go through the steps and you decide to do this, make sure that after you apply the epoxy to your metal parts, after about 5 or 6 hours, you need to take it back apart while that epoxy is still malleable, fairly soft. Not sticky soft, but you want it about the consistency of like a bar of chocolate, you know, something like that. It feels somewhat hard, but it's still not completely hard, I should say. If you wait until the next day or the following 2 days, it's going to be so hard you're going to have a hard time getting it apart, you know, if you're able to do it at all. So what I did last night, after I got this put back together, I waited about 6 hours and I took it apart and trimmed all of the excess off of it and put it back together. And right now we're going to take it back apart to see how well it covered everything, you know. So let me go ahead and remove the cover for now. We'll clean everything up before we put it back together. Take these screws out. I wanted it to cure good and hard throughout the day before I finished this video. So I put everything back together and let it cure up with the metal parts in place. There you can see it came right off. Okay, each corner has a very thin coat of that epoxy, as you can see. Hardly even noticeable. But believe me, that little bit of epoxy right there actually holds everything in place. Now we'll take the barrel out. And there you have it. Go ahead and take this stirrup out. It fits in there good and tight. That's what I like to see. And as you can see, that gap that was there yesterday is now completely filled in, and that barrel is fully supported right here where the bolt strikes the breech end of the barrel. Okay? And that's really what I found out will change your zero, because as that bolt travels rearward and then slams forward, loading another cartridge in there, it actually changes the position of that barrel each time. At a very minute level, but still, it changes. So we've got a nice mating surface here on the forend and inside the stock here. Now I know what some of you are going to say. You just ruined the collectability of this rifle. Well, not really, because none of this is visible from the outside. You know, once everything's put together, you can't tell unless you take the gun apart. And to me, like I mentioned before, if the gun's not shooting where I'm aiming each time and I can't depend on that shot going where I want it to, it's of no use to me. You know, I'm going to use my guns whether they're collectible or not, and I improve their accuracy anytime I can, because it's kind of like having a car, folks. You know, if you can't drive the car, what use is it? Really? It's of no practical use. If you get in that car and you can't depend on it taking you where you need to go, then it's just a piece of junk, really. And the same thing with guns. If they're not shooting where you expect them to go, then practically speaking, they're useless. But I think we've stabilized this one enough where we can make this a real shooter. Now, before we put it back together, of course you want to clean all the metal surfaces and get all the wax off of it. We'll go ahead and remove this empty cartridge from the barrel. And we'll remove all the excess wax. Just like that. While I got the barrel out, I'm going to go ahead and run a cleaning snake down the bore. Make sure that's clear. That there's no wax or anything inside the bore. Now everything's clear. That barrel's ready to be installed. I'm going to put a real light coat of mineral oil on all the metal parts before I put everything back together, because I really don't expect to have to take this gun apart for a long time. And with some luck, I think we'll have a real shooter here. So let me get the gun put back together, and maybe I should run you through that in case you've forgotten how. First thing we need to do is put the magazine back into the stock. You just insert it in the rear, just like that. And then make sure you keep up with all your parts. Here's this little clip, this retainer clip. And as you can see, it goes right here at the end of the magazine tube, and just push it all the way down. Now it's held in place. Okay. Now we'll go ahead and install the striker. That's this piece and the striker spring. There's a striker spring guide that goes into the spring, just like that. Okay. And that slides right into the rails of the gun. I'll tell you what, let me pan this down here so that you can see it better. Just like that. Align your rails, and then your spring and guide go into that hole in the back of the stock right here. Make sure you get that all the way in there, just like that. Okay, now you can turn the safety off in the off position, and you'll have to get the striker all the way to the rear. Okay, and the way to get this striker back into position here is you use a scribe and you push down on the trigger sear or the disconnector right here. Squeeze the trigger and hold it down. Okay, hold that down. And now it's back in place. Now, remember, after you've accomplished that, getting the striker to the rear like that, put the safety back on. That way you don't accidentally pull the trigger and all this goes flying forward. Don't want that to happen. Okay. Next up, we have the bolt. We're going to go ahead and install it. Here you have the bolt spring and the spring guide. spring guide end goes into the back of the bolt where that hole is right there. See that hole? Just like that. Now we'll go ahead and slide it into place. Make sure you put your spring into this guide right here. And for the time being, I'm going to push this back and put my handle, my charging handle, in place. Okay? Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and install this stirrup or barrel retaining clamp. Goes right into the slot here. I'm going to apply a little bit of this mineral oil to my barrel. Wipe it down real good. And we'll go ahead and slide it into place right there. Make sure that barrel clamp is aligned with the slot in the end of that barrel. Now we'll put our retaining screw in there. Go ahead and get it started. And we're going to tighten it down just like that. Now you can remove your charging handle for the time being. I'm going to go ahead and wipe down the inside and the outside of this receiver cover. All right. Now, don't forget, I almost did it. Don't forget the ejector. It goes right into that slot right there. It just slides in there. You know, even without the screws in, there is no movement now. No back and forth movement. Everything's retained perfectly. This used to slide back and forth, about a 32nd of an inch or so, and that's enough, more than enough, to shift your point of impact. Go ahead and put our screws in for now. Don't over tighten these, just snug them down. That's all that's necessary. Screws are thin steel. That's all you need right there. Now go ahead and install the charging handle and you're back in business. Okay guys, now that I've got this receiver cover and barrel bedded and stabilized to the stock itself, it's time to go ahead and install a scope and see how this baby shoots, okay? Let's test it real quick to make sure we don't have any loose movement. I'm grabbing the barrel and I'm grabbing the middle of the stock here. I don't feel any movement at all. There is a little bit of flex in the gun stock itself, but that always returns to center. But what I wanted to eliminate, and what I've done here, is eliminate any movement of the barrel inside the channel, inside the barrel channel where it fits into the stock, and also of the receiver cover. We want everything to remain still, you know, to stay put. That was the purpose of doing this. But if you remember, I mean, I'm putting quite a bit of force on here. If you remember the first part of the video, when I was moving that, you could actually hear that barrel moving around inside this stock. It just made the gun feel more solid to me. Now, it's not as critical to do this if you're just going to be shooting open sights, but even shooting open sights, if you have any movement of this receiver cover or the barrel, your point of impact can actually shift. But with what I just performed with this little rifle right here, that should all be fixed. That should be cured. So anyway, I'm going to wait a day or two before I mount a scope on here. I want that epoxy to really cure and harden up, and then we'll put the little gun to the test. So stay tuned, and we'll come back out here and shoot a few groups with it and see how well this little rifle will perform. Well, my friends, here we are a couple of days later, and I allowed the epoxy to really harden and cure in the stock of this Nylon 66 rifle, and I went ahead and mounted a 4-power Redfield scope from one of my other Nylon 66 rifles on this one, and I think I got it pretty well sighted in. I shot it down here at 40 yards, and I got a couple of groups that I shot, and it was shooting a little bit low and to the right, but there's one of the groups right there. Not a bad group at all. That measures just a tad over a half an inch. 4 of them, all the bullet holes are touching there. And then I shot another group without touching the scope, and there you can see there's one close to the bullseye, but the 4 subsequent ones went into one ragged hole down there at 40 yards. So that's pretty impressive. And I can attest to the fact that none of my Nylon 66 rifles shot this well before I performed this technique of bedding the barrel and the receiver cover to the stock, because what it actually does is it allows the gun to shoot much more consistently, and consistency is what translates into accuracy. You know, if the gun's not shooting at the same point each time, then it can't be accurate. So, you know, it mated the barrel and the receiver cover to the stock because, like I mentioned before, the barrel is not in any way affixed to the receiver cover that holds your scope, but you can stabilize that enough to where everything stays put, and you're able to take it apart if you need to clean it. And with this technique that I've got, you can't tell anything's been done to the rifle from the outside. None whatsoever. I mean, if you look at this gun, to anyone else it's just a Nylon 66 with a scope mounted on it. But, you know, some people, like I said, may say that this takes away from the value of the gun. But to me, the value of a rifle or any kind of gun is to shoot consistently. Because if it shoots to the same point every time, that translates into consistency, which equals dependable accuracy. And, you know, there was a famous gentleman in our past that said that only accurate rifles are interesting, Colonel Townsend, and he was right. You know, if a gun's not going to shoot where I want it to go, then to me it's useless, it's worthless. So all I did really was stabilize this rifle enough to where I can dependably hit a target out there at 40, 50, 60 yards so that I can go hunting with it. And that's what these were intended for, really. You know, they were good little hunting rifles. They're built pretty tough, but they had their weaknesses. So what I want to do now is put up another target down here at 40 yards and shoot another 5-shot group using some of this SK Standard Plus. This is good ammunition. It's always performed well for me, and I'm just curious to see how well that it's sighted in and if it can consistently stay inside one of those little rifle dots. They're not very big, but you know, if it can stay inside that, then I know I can make a good shot on a small game animal every time. So let's go ahead and put up the target and try it out. Well, my friends, I'm pretty well happy with that little group. As you can see, they all stayed inside that little orange dot. That's about the size of a nickel, and that's perfectly fine with me. And the one group that impressed me the most was this one here. I shot this one just before I moved the sights to get it centered up. But those 4 shots right there clustering into one ragged hole is what impressed me the most. So that tells me that little rifle has quite a bit of potential. And using this ammunition, this SK Standard Plus, you know, it was something I wanted to try in my Nylon 66 rifles. I've never tried it before, and I was just curious, and once again, it's proven to be very accurate. But I'll tell you what, it wouldn't have shot nearly as well if I hadn't stabilized the barrel and the receiver cover into the stock of this little rifle, because as you could tell before, initially in the video, this barrel was moving back and forth. You could actually hear it going up and down and side to side. So, you know, it can't hold zero with that much movement. So if you have a Nylon 66 and you're having trouble with it, you might want to give this technique a try. Hopefully it'll save you, you know, where you can shoot more consistently and more accurately. And you know, just take your time doing it. Try to go through the steps that I showed you in the video, and you should be able to make your gun shoot a lot better. It's worked fine for my rifles. This is the 3rd one that I've done it to, and I'm convinced, absolutely convinced, that that works. And what gave me the idea is when I did the repair on my Seneca Green Nylon 66 this past winter, that little rifle still shoots lights out. I mean, it's an excellent shooter. And it's probably the most accurate nylon I've ever shot. But you know, you have to try things sometimes to make a discovery. And the lights just turned on for me, and I don't know why I didn't think of that before, because I've glass bedded other rifles that I've had, and the principle is the same. You're stabilizing the action and the barrel inside the stock of your gun, you know, to get it to shoot to the same point more consistently each time. So folks, thanks a lot for coming along. I do appreciate you watching. Hopefully you gained some useful information for yourself. And remember, if you like to go hunting, fishing, camping, shooting, hiking, no matter what your outdoor pursuit happens to be, I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. But also remember this, hit that like button, smash the bell icon, and subscribe. That way you'll know when more videos like this one will be coming your way. So until next time, y'all take good care of yourselves and get out there and enjoy the great outdoors. I'll be seeing you.